The San Antonio Spurs are standing at a familiar crossroads, but this time, the stakes feel different. For years, the franchise has been rebuilding, collecting young talent, and patiently waiting for the next generational anchor. That anchor has arrived in the form of Victor Wembanyama, a player whose defensive range, offensive skill set, and sheer physical uniqueness already redefine what a modern NBA big man can be. But even generational talents don't build dynasties alone. The Spurs' next step is not about finding another star to replace Wembanyama's importance, it's about constructing a complete ecosystem around him. That means size, that means physicality, that means rim protection behind and beside him. It also means shooting, bench depth, and veteran stability. This is what the Spurs must do next. The foundation, building around Wembanyama. Right now, the Spurs have the hardest piece of any rebuild already solved. Wembanyama changes defensive geometry. He forces teams to alter shots before they're even taken. He can protect the rim while still recovering to the perimeter. Offensively, he stretches the floor like a wing, but punishes mismatches like a center. But the modern NBA punishes teams that rely too heavily on one defensive anchor. Even the best rim protectors need support. Foul trouble, matchup hunting, and physical wear all become issues over an 82-game season. That's why the Spurs' offseason priority must be clear. They need another big man, someone who can absorb contact, protect the paint when Wembanyama sits, and allow the Spurs to maintain defensive identity regardless of lineup. This is not about replacing Wembanyama's role, it's about preserving him. Why the Spurs need another big man. The Spurs' interior defense has flashes of elite potential, but consistency is the issue. When Wembanyama's off the floor, opposing teams tend to attack the rim more aggressively. Even when he's on the floor, physical front courts can wear him down over time, something every young franchise cornerstone experiences. What San Antonio lacks is a second true rim protector, a physically strong rebounder, a low-maintenance defensive big who doesn't require touches. In past championship teams, this role has always existed. Think of defensive anchors paired with star bigs or versatile forwards who can handle dirty work. Without it, Wembanyama becomes overextended, and overextension leads to fatigue. Fatigue leads to inconsistency, and inconsistency slows a rebuild. The draft path, young big men to watch. The Spurs have multiple directions they could take in the draft, but several prospects stand out as long-term interior solutions. Jayden Quaintance. One of the most intriguing names is Jayden Quaintance. His defensive instincts, timing as a shot blocker, and ability to rotate and help defense make him a natural fit in a system anchored by Wembanyama. He's not being asked to be a star right away, his value is structural. If developed properly, Quaintance could become a high-level secondary rim protector who allows the Spurs to experiment with ultra-long defensive lineups. The pairing potential is clear. Wembanyama as the roaming disruptor, Quaintance as the physical deterrent. Cenac Jr. Cenac Jr. brings a different profile, more offensive upside, more fluid movement, and a modern skill set for a big. He's not just a paint defender, he has touch, coordination, and enough shooting potential to stretch his game outward over time. For San Antonio, Cenac represents versatility. He could play next to Wembanyama or function as a developmental big who eventually becomes part of a two-center rotation. In today's NBA, that flexibility matters. Morez Johnson Jr. Morez Johnson Jr. is the most physically traditional of the three. He brings strength, rebounding, and interior toughness, exactly the kind of presence the Spurs often lack when games slow down in the half-court. He may not project as a flashy scorer, but playoff basketball is often decided by possessions, not highlights. Morez's value would be simple: box out, defend, rebound, set screens, finish plays. And for a young Spurs roster, that kind of reliability is underrated. Drafting solves the future, but winning sooner requires veterans. The Spurs need players who understand spacing, defensive rotations, and playoff physicality. Players who can stabilize lineups when young players struggle. 3 realistic targets stand out. Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon represents exactly the type of player championship teams rely on. He's physical, he defends multiple positions, he rebounds in traffic, and most importantly, he doesn't need the ball to be effective. In San Antonio, Gordon would serve as a bridge between the perimeter and interior defense. He could guard wings, help on bigs, and take pressure off Wembanyama in switch-heavy schemes. He also brings playoff experience, something the Spurs currently lack in their young core. Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is another stabilizing option. While not a defensive anchor, Harris brings scoring consistency, mid-range reliability, and size at the forward position. He can function as a secondary scorer when defensive attention shifts toward Wembanyama. The Spurs' offense can stagnate at times due to youth and inexperience. Harris would smooth those stretches. He's not a long-term centerpiece, but he is a pressure release valve. Rui Hachimura offers a blend of physicality and offensive efficiency. He thrives in mid-post situations, cuts well off ball, and can defend multiple forward types in short bursts. For San Antonio, Hachimura would add depth, scoring punch, and lineup flexibility. In a rotation system built around Wembanyama, players like Hachimura matter because they prevent offensive droughts when the stars sit. The most important issue: the bench. Even if the Spurs make the right draft pick and add a veteran forward, none of it matters without bench improvement. Right now, the biggest gap in San Antonio's roster construction is not the starting lineup, it's the second unit. The issues are clear: inconsistent scoring when starters rest, lack of proven shot creation, limited defensive intensity in non-starting lineups, and over-reliance on young, developing guards and wings. A contender does not just survive non-starter minutes, it wins them. The Spurs must prioritize: 1. A backup point guard who can control tempo, 2. A scoring wing who can generate offense independently, and 3. A defensive big or hybrid forward for second-unit stability. Without these pieces, Wembanyama will constantly return to games needing to fix momentum swings. That is not sustainable long-term. Lineup construction and strategic identity. The Spurs' identity should evolve into something modern but grounded. Defensive versatility, size at every position, transition speed anchored by elite rim protection, and offensive flow built around spacing and read-based decision-making. With Wembanyama at the center of everything, the Spurs can experiment with lineups that most teams cannot use: double big defensive units, switch-heavy small ball groups with length, transition-heavy lineups with rim protection behind them. But all of this depends on one factor: support. Wembanyama cannot be the only structural defender on the floor at all times. Development timeline: patience versus pressure. The Spurs are in an unusual position. They are rebuilding, but they also have a player good enough to accelerate timelines. That creates tension. Do they continue developing slowly, prioritizing draft growth and internal progression, or do they accelerate by trading for veterans and pushing toward playoff contention earlier? The answer is likely a balance. Draft for long-term foundation, trade for mid-tier veterans who stabilize the roster, avoid overcommitting to short-term moves that sacrifice flexibility. The goal is not to rush the process. The goal is to avoid wasting years of elite defensive potential from Wembanyama's early career. Well, that's my full breakdown of what I think the Spurs need to do this offseason. Now I want to hear from you. What moves should San Antonio make first? Draft another big, go after a veteran like Aaron Gordon, or focus on fixing the bench? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.